Hello guys and girls, and welcome to episode 26 of the VR Inside podcast. This is a weekly VR, AR and MR talk show that is live streamed every Saturday on Nathie's YouTube channel. You can tune into the show live at 4 PM in Europe, 3 PM in the UK and 9 AM in central US. If you missed the podcast, you can catch up with the whole show where I re-upload the show to my own YouTube channel every Sunday on Virtual Reality Oasis. Or check out the audio-only version, which is available on Google Play Music, iTunes, and on SoundCloud. If you've got any comments, questions, or feedback during the show, please put them in the chat and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. So this week, let me introduce you to the VR lads. When I say VR, you say lads? VR?
Lads.
Yes, it actually worked. So this guy, he likes to plunder treasure and sail the seven seas with his mateys in VR. It is, of course, Zim25. How you doing, dude? You all right?
I'm wonderful. Right there, I could tell Rowdy and I are like, who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? Is it gonna be me? Is it gonna be me? It's gonna be me! Yes, it's me! So yes, very good. I think those were wonderful adventures we had. The three of us swashbuckling. What were we the pirates or were they the? I'm still confused.
I don't know.
Of course, pirates. We were, of course,
Were
pirates.
we the pirates? I mean, we still didn't get our pirate costumes.
Or any gold.
So
Like, literally
that is
no
the sad
gold.
truth. That is the sad
we
truth.
were miserable pirates.
Literally
Yeah,
the
we
worst
were.
pirates. Yeah, so week of being the worst pirate, basically, Mike.
Yeah. So this next guy, he is the Pied Piper of VR. Everywhere he goes, the little mice follow him. He is, of course, the RowdyGuy. How are you doing, mate? You alright?
I am great. I'm doing actually really great, yeah.
Good.
I had a lot of fun playing with Zim and you as well, you know.
Yeah.
But I've been playing some interesting stuff this week. I guess we'll talk about that in a minute from now.
Yeah, of course. So Nathie,
Yourself?
our blonde-haired little Dutchman, he can't actually make this week's show, but he will, of course, be back next week. So it's nothing to worry about. He will be back, but he just unfortunately can't make the show this week. Of course, last but not least, myself, Mike, the guy with the majestic beard from Virtual Reality Oasis. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about Rec Room's new quest, which is the Isle of Lost Skulls. We're going to be talking about the cutest game ever made in VR, and that is Moss on the PlayStation VR. And all your tabletop simulator dreams have finally come true with the Rolling Line, which is a tabletop train simulator, which we're going to talk about as well. But first off, let's start, as we do every week now, and that's finding out what everyone has been up to in the metaverse. So let's start off with Zim and find out what you've been up to, because, you know, I'm interested to know, and I'm sure you're going to be talking about Rec Room, so let's touch on that, but let's talk about it more later on in a bit more depth.
That's the usual, Mike. I've got plenty that I did other than other than that, so we'll leave that one for later. But I did do a couple of things. My usual racing stint, but I went back to a title that I really like that a lot of people I think don't know about, which is Redout. Super fast, super fast,
Yeah.
Wipeout style racer. Meanwhile, this
Right.
begs the question: WTF is going on with the Wipeout trilogy that was supposed to be launching? You know, we heard about this. We've now heard nothing recently, or at least I've found nothing on the web about it. So
Yeah.
don't know what's going on with that. But Redout is the coolest thing I wanted to say about Redout is if you buy, it's got loads of DLC. Firstly, the DLC is like really stunningly good quality. All the different tracks are totally different from one another. Like there's a Mars pack. There's a Neptune one. There's a whole bunch that are named things that are like alien planets. All very, very fun to play. But the best part is that if you're a host and you've got a couple of friends just in the base game, you host with all that content. So you don't have to actually buy any of the DLC.
Nice.
There's very few games that do that, but I think it's a great model, and I think more should adopt it. But I wanted to highlight that. That's
I love it when games do that. And there's a game coming out in the near future, I think, called A Way Out, which is like a co-op game from EA, and it's like a prison escape game. And you can play it cooperatively, but I don't think the second player has to have the game, so you can just invite them to join in your game, which is so cool. I love that model. It works
neat.
really well.
That's neat.
Yeah.
The last thing that I played, which was a really different experience for me, and what I'll run, it's a game called Mortars VR. And when I saw it, I was like, all right, guys, what is this game? And I'll run a little, trailer about it. But basically, the premise is up to four multiplayer slots, and you're all sitting in what looks like kind of an open front tank, and you are a tower, and your health is represented by stacks on the tower growing up, and you spawn in a position, and your friends spawn in different positions. And so, like Worms, what you're trying to do, if anyone's familiar with the game Worms, you're trying to launch projectiles at each other.
Right.
And what you're doing in the basically the tank cabin is you are saying, what's the power of my shot? Reloading the projectile, selecting specific projectiles that you're going to shoot, and rotating with this little wheel left and right, like this around, back and forth. And it actually ends up being a really fun little experience. But the reason I wanted to highlight it was because it was quite fun, and it was 99 cents. It was, and the actual design of the levels and all that, while it's in early access, they're going to ramp the price later. But it's really cheap. Networking code worked very well, and some of the levels are actually very dynamic. Like, you've got tables that are moving, makes the shots really hard, and it's just hilarious fun. I'd recommend you guys check it out. We should actually play it 4-player sometime. It's really worthwhile.
How is it called? Mortars VR?
Mortars VR, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just on Steam right now, right?
Just on Steam, early access, yeah.
Okay, cool. So how did you find this game? Like, how did it come about?
A friend of mine badgered me for like 2 weeks to check it out. He's like, Zim, you'd love this. Yeah, I know you'd like this. I'm like, yeah, it looks cheap and shite, and I'm not going to play it. And then we played it, and I'm like, you were right. I love it. It's so good. We had a blast for like 2 hours yesterday. So
I'll have to check that out, and I'll have to watch the stream back to check out the trailer. But just going back to the Humanity Bureau very, very quickly, is this going to be like a full theatrical release, or is it just a VR exclusive kind of thing that's going to be on the Oculus Store and then forgotten about?
So the movie, as much as I know from what I ingested from their side, it looks like the movie is just a 2D film.
Oh, right. Okay.
One of the things that I found was really weird, I've never seen this before, was an in VR 3-monitor experience. So you have like 3 channels of content. You have VR content, which is basically 360 video stuff that they've put in, and the camera's just sitting somewhere. You have the regular trailer, which is probably the most comfortable thing to actually watch, which was just like a big, IMAX-C thing, and you can watch trailer for the film. And the third channel was watch the trailer on basically 3 virtual monitors. So there's a monitor here and one on the left and one on the right, but you're in close enough that you have to be like, you're looking left and right, going, I gotta catch the action. Oh, I'm looking at a bush now. Now I'm looking at a kid's face. Now, oh, that scene's black. And the weird thing was, there wasn't 3 monitors all the time. It would use like 1 monitor, then it would all of a sudden flash to 3, and then you're like looking at the size, and then it's back to 1 again. For like a third of the time, it was using this 3 monitor stuff. What were they thinking? I just don't get it. It's so bad.
It's so funny. You can just see it, can't you, in like a boardroom somewhere. Someone's going, do you know what would be a great marketing idea for this movie? Do a VR experience. And then someone goes, what's VR? And it's like, yeah, that's your job. Make sure it happens in 2 weeks' time. And then they like bring out some rubbish like this.
That is exactly what happened. Because what they do is they have first Nicolas Cage talking about it. He's like, I never knew what VR was about. And he's like talking about it. And he was like, and it's just so new. And you can tell they have like no idea about it. They have not spent ample time in this. And then they go to the guy who directed it, who's I sent a kind of a rough tweet out, but I had to because this unfortunately degrades. If someone watches this for the first time, they're never going to come to VR again. It's like, it's that bad.
It's that bad.
So it looked quite awful.
I just
really quick notice here for people asking about Nathie. No, he's not frozen in time, and he has not looked into Medusa's eyes. This is just a picture that we're showing of him.
Just a picture.
It's not that he can still move. It's just a picture. So
he's not frozen in the metaverse.
No,
he's not been playing Wizards and frozen by Medusa. No, he is fine, but he will be back next week. I'm sure.
We should have done that. We should have done like a quick Photoshop and made him Han Solo. In the Han Solo.
Yeah, in Carbonite. That would have been genius.
Fucking hell, we missed.
Only.
Next time.
Next time. So go on, Rowdy. What have you been playing this week?
Yeah, I've been actually getting more into that murder game that I talked about last time.
The Invisible Hours. Yeah.
I did a stream on that. I think it's been. No, it's not my longest stream, but it was one of the longest one I did. Really enjoying it so far. It's a really great story. It's great storytelling as well. So yeah, it's quite a neat one. That one I actually dove just back into. I still have 1 chapter to do for that one, so I've done 3 chapters.
Are you getting any closer to solving it?
Yeah, I'm getting close. I know who did it. I know.
You know who did it?
I don't think so, but I'm not gonna say, of course. You know.
Okay, no,
I told her last time I always watch with my mom, and she's been watching all of the live streams that I'm doing with it, and she's been texting me about like, I think it's this one who did it. And she has like her own theory and stuff. It's quite funny. Like
that's awesome that your mom's getting
a lot
involved.
of people are enjoying that as well.
Yeah.
And then the other one I played was a pretty big release actually, that a lot of people did not know about, was The Way of Kings VR.
Yeah.
I haven't read the books myself, but they're actually getting quite popular, and I am thinking about like getting into it because it's kind of like the genre that I like really a lot. It's a fairly short experience. I think in like 15 minutes you can get through it. It does cost like I think $10.99, which is a bit of a high price for such an experience. But I do like the kind of concept that they bring into VR. It's very very narrative, very story focused. It's a lot of people were complaining about the voice acting, but that was me, so you know. And you also had then the voice actor of Syl, which I thought was actually pretty well done, and it really got you to like, even in that 50 minutes, a little bit of a connection that you felt with a character.
Whoa. In terms of, were you actually in this? Were you actually voice acting in this, or were you just?
No. In my own video, I was playing like my own role. So people were like, why does the main actor sound like he's? Well, I think they were implying that he didn't sound native English or something, which of course I'm not native English, you know. And with the gameplay itself, it's more like there isn't like a lot of game mechanics that you can do. You have like the lashing, which basically is that it's like a telekinesis. That's what it basically is. Like you can point at rocks with your hands and like lift them up and like throw them out. You can do that with enemies as well. Pick them up and throw them around. And that's pretty much the only mechanic that is really there, except for like picking some stuff up and putting it back down.
I'm a little sorry, Rowdy. I'm just a little bit lost here. Maybe some of the viewers are as well. What's the setting? I've seen an image of it. It looks almost like Spartan or something. Can you describe it a little bit?
The Way of Kings is a book series that has been written by Brandon Sanderson. Oh. It's a fantasy series, much in the style of like other fantasy titles. You know, if you like that kind of stuff, I used to read a lot of that kind of stuff. Starting with like Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, and going all the way to like, well, I forgot the titles, but there's a lot of fantasy stuff that is out there, and there's a huge scene behind that as well. And one of the more popular ones at the moment is The Way of Kings, the Stormlight Archive from Brandon Sanderson. And what basically happened is that in collaboration with Brandon Sanderson, they made a VR experience. I don't know for exactly what reason they have for this, like if they want to delve further into VR, or is this more like an advertisement for like a movie that they're planning on making, or it's just like playing for the series to give it like a little bit more of popularity. But I did have the feeling, and a lot of people told me this as well, even though I did not read the books, that this was more aimed at like a general audience. Because a lot of people were complaining that the lashing was not how it was described in the books, that the characterization of Syl was not exactly similar to, but it's more like it's like a VR adaptation to make it more available for a broader audience.
Of course,
Using scenes from the book, like, cause some people are asking if it contains spoilers, but because it's an adaptation, it does not really contain spoilers, but there were then again people from the book that recognize certain kind of things from the books. So it's like a difficult thing to say, like if it contains spoilers or not. But
it was cool because I watched like the first 5 minutes of your video, and you were like role playing as the main character, and I love those kind of videos. I tried to do it myself, but I'm nowhere near as good as you at it, so I don't think I'll do another one.
I think you did fine. Yeah, I saw that one. I enjoyed it.
But yeah, like it's fun to become that character and sort of act it out, you know, as if you were in that situation yourself. It was really cool. I think you got the right voice for it. I think that's what you got.
Yeah, maybe. For me, it's just a lot of fun to do it that way. And the thing with this series in particular is that it's nice when there is like this kind of like narrative that goes around it. Not a lot of VR, because you can't do this in every VR game. When there is such a strong narrative, because it's based on a book, of course, then it becomes so much easier to play out like a certain role or like a character, and I think that is quite neat. And then, of course, the other title that I played was Moss, having a PlayStation VR. I kind of had to play this title, and I was. I mean, we'll talk about this more in just a moment, so I won't say too much about it, except for that I really enjoy that one.
On the King's game, I just wanted to say, have you guys read or ingested any like the Golden Compass? I think is the name. Golden
Compass. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Rowdy?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. They made one movie of this as well.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, so is what you just experienced? Is it like a multi-hour game? Or is it rather just being in the world with the assets and
literally
kind of
just a 15-minute experience of like basically like a scene from the book, introducing the characters that you have Kaladin, the main character, and Syl, which is like a fairy kind of thing that flows around you and then like guides you where you need to go. And then you have like a few enemies that you encounter. I believe they're called the Pershkins. Something with a P. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not really into the series yet.
Yeah, we've had a few of these now, haven't we? Because Mike, didn't you do? Was it the Fantastic Beasts that you did?
Yeah, and that was kind of like, again, another 15 to 20 minute experience. You know, it's not like a full game, but it's a good taster of what, you know, you can sort of interact with the characters, see some of the iconic creatures from the movie, and it was clever because they kind of introduced like a 360 video and merged it a bit like Coco did in the virtual world in almost a seamless way. So it really did look very, very polished and very nice. Something I hadn't seen before, so it was very good.
The nice thing about the Way of Kings is it's completely set in a different kind of world. It's a fully new world that has been created, much like for example, Lord of the Rings is also like completely different kind of world that is created.
But this is just a one-off experience, is it, Rowdy? It's not like it's going to be a full game or a series or anything like that. Don't know.
I don't know what they're going to do with this further. It's at the moment it just is as it is. You know, it's a 15-minute experience, and I'm guessing that they're also going to look at how popular this will get with just the general audience. They're charging money for this, so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Really?
I don't know what their intent is. Yeah, it's $10.99.
I think that's fair though. Like from what I saw, it looks like pretty graphically.
Yeah, what you need to compare this again. Like we talked about this before. You need to compare this with like a movie ticket. Huh?
Yeah.
You go to a movie. You have a 1 hour, 2 hour kind of experience. I kind of classify this in that category as well. And I enjoyed myself with this. I like this kind of stuff. It's not something you're going to be playing again and again and again.
Yeah,
by no means, but for the short amount that it lasts, it was an enjoyable experience.
Cool. One must play just for you guys before Mike tells us what he did. Gnomes and Goblins, or Goblins and Gnomes on Steam. Have you guys done that one? It's free, and it's from about 1.5 years ago. But like my wife and I agreed, it was probably one of the. If you like the art style in Moss and that, which we'll talk about later. I think that's a must-do. It's not super long, but it's one you have to do. Gnomes and Goblins, or Goblins and Gnomes. I can never remember the order.
Okay.
Definitely.
I'm just writing it down now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got a big thumbs up for me.
Cool. Well, obviously I've been playing Rec Room with you guys. Not really played much else. Got involved a little bit in Reality Dex VR, which is like a virtual DJing simulator. But what I actually realised was that I suck at being a DJ, so I'm not going to be the next, Pete Tong or anything like that. But it was kind of fun, to see the mechanics, and then you've got these, like, obviously 2 turntables and a mixer in the middle. But just like, mixing in real life, it's actually pretty difficult. So unless you're kind of like used to being, DJing or mixing tracks, then you're not going to be any good at it. It has got some tutorials which kind of guide you through how to do it, and then you can look up and there's a mirror of you, like, spinning those wheels of steel, which is kind of cool. But what I would have liked, like, if I was really good at it, it would have been to have that kind of like a Guitar Hero rock band experience where you've got like a sea of like clubbers in front of you and you're like in a club and you're like really smashing it, and then when like the track hits a certain note or something, the crowd goes crazy. Like, it would have been cool to get that kind of feedback from someone. And also, it would have been cool to be able to record it from a perspective, like in the audience as well, to see you actually playing rather than just from your eyes as well. But yeah, it's kind of cool. It's a fun experience, and certainly if you're into music and into DJing, then certainly go and check it out. But that's about it really from what I've been up to this week. I haven't really been involved in VR that much. I've been busy doing VR stuff, but not so much playing games. So it's been interesting from that point of view. But let's jump into the quick news this week. We've got a few snippets before we jump into the main topics, and that is that the first one coming up is Planet of the Apes is coming to VR. So 20th Century Fox have just announced that Crisis on the Planet of the Apes VR game, which is coming to PSVR, Oculus Rift and HTC Vive on April the 3rd. So we're going to be playing the trailer right now, and in this experience it's kind of like a story-driven game, which you assume the role of one of the apes, which is kind of interesting because you're playing it's interesting because you're not quite sure who's good and who's bad. Like, humanity are kind of like holding these apes and you know, keeping them and testing them and stuff, but you assume that role. So you're in the facility and you have to break out with your little primate buddies and then go back to Caesar, who is obviously like the leader of the apes if you've followed any of the movies. But it's cool to see it from this unique perspective as playing as an ape. And like in the trailer you can see that your hands are all like hairy and you can climb stuff, which looks really cool. There's a bit with a gun that you can sort of see that the character's kind of reloading. So it kind of looks, it's going to be more interactive than some of the other movie tie-in stuff we've seen in the past, and it's kind of looking more like an actual game in that sense. But, you know, I think it looks kind of cool. I don't know what you guys think of this one.
Yeah, I just watched the trailer as well. It looks polished in a way.
It does, yeah.
I kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a neat concept. I mean, it's a freaking scary concept, because if apes became as smart as us, then we're pretty much screwed, you know?
Yeah, we are. I don't know if you guys have seen the movies, because I was actually quite a fan of the movies. I really enjoyed them. The new Planet of the Apes movies.
There's a lot of bite in the movies, and I like that. Like, I actually enjoyed the original and the new ones as well. But from what I see from the trailer, it's funny because I just spent the morning playing Left 4 Dead with my family, and instantly I just see that's like they've just merged the human roles and the hunter from Left 4 Dead into one like storyline. So straight away I'm kind of actually quite interested in that. Although, yeah, being a monkey with a machine gun is kind of like
There's a really cool scene in, like, I think it's the second Planet of the Apes movie, where one of the apes, he finds like a cache of weapons and he's picking it up, and there's a couple of guys there and they're like, oh, he's picked up a gun, he looks really funny, he's like cute, and then he really turns them and then he kills them, he's like really evil.
It was like part of that advert series that were like posted across the internet to make it seem like it was real.
Yeah, they did do that.
Yeah,
they did do that. That was really cool.
Out.
Yeah. So this is coming out, like I say, on April the 3rd. It's going to be available cross-platform on PSVR, Vive, and Rift, and it's for $15. So we'll wait and see what it's like.
Apparently, Paradise Decay knows someone who has been testing the Planet of the Apes games, and he says that it's very good.
Well, that's a little inside scoop for you there. So fingers crossed it will be the polished experience and maybe one of the better movie tie-ins that we've come to see just recently. Not like the Humanity Bureau that we mentioned earlier on.
Jumanji VR.
So while we're on the topic of movie tie-ins, HTC have been in partnership with Ready Player One. Like, they announced it way back when Ready Player One said that they were bringing out a movie, and HTC were like, yeah, we're part of it. But they've been really quiet about what they're actually doing with this sort of new franchise. So what they're actually doing, they've announced a little bit more information about what they're going to be doing, and that is from the 9th of March to the 11th. HTC will be at SXSW, which is South by Southwest. Now, if you're not familiar with South by Southwest, it's an annual conglomerate of film, interactive media, music festivals, games, everything kind of comes together in Austin, Texas, and they all kind of show off what they're working on. So it's kind of rumored right now that outside where the venue is going to be hosted, they've rebuilt the stacks from Ready Player One. So they've got a load of like mobile homes stacked up, just like the book and the movie kind of portrays, which is kind of interesting. And then once you get in, you'll get like a little tag which has got an RFID in it, which is when you go through like different parts of the environment, which they kind of laid out in this Ready Player One kind of theme. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can jump into VR, design an avatar. You can play some VR versions of classic arcade games, which is kind of mentioned in the book and going to be mentioned in the movie. Funnily enough, the actor that plays the main character, Wade Watts, and Parzival in the movie is actually going to be doing a DJ set as well there, which is kind of a bit strange. But they've also got like an 80s trivia quiz where you can win a Vive. And they're doing all sorts of like Ready Player One themed kind of stuff. But what I'm a bit disappointed with is that it's not going to be like any VR content that we can experience at home. Like, you really have to go to South by Southwest to experience a lot of this stuff that HTC are doing in partnership with the movie, which is kind of a shame because most of us aren't going to be able to do that. Like, you know, I can't just jump on a plane to Austin, Texas. So I'm a bit disappointed that I'm going to miss out on a lot of this, but they will be hosting a live stream on Sunday, which is the 11th, if you're interested. It's got a lot of people that featured in the movie itself. A lot of the stars are going to be talking about the movie, VR in general, and HTC are going to be talking about stuff as well. So it'll be interesting to watch the live stream, but I don't think they're actually going to bring anything to the home users, which is a bit disappointing.
I don't know. They still could, I think. I still think they might, but
maybe closer to the release.
What would you prefer? Would you prefer them to do an event right in a place where people can get hyped about it and we can anyway digest that content vicariously, or would you rather them come out with a half-assed, you know, VR app that you want the proper quality app, don't you?
It depends if I'm invited to go or not. If I'm invited to go, then obviously the event. If I'm not, then I want the content.
The thing about this is, though, you know, they chose to do it in a controlled environment, which means that they can control every little aspect of that experience, which for a release like Ready Player One, which probably has a lot of impact on the VR industry as well, is maybe a good strategy. It's a good strategy, because even if, like, you know, you only get like a fraction of the people invited to an event like that, those people will all leave with a very good impression and it will go round, which might even be a better strategy than releasing an application.
Yeah, what I would love is, you know, that Ready Player One, you know, the people behind the movie acknowledge the fact that there's tons of people in VR, and maybe give us like the first taste of it, you know, maybe like a 5-minute teaser of like the first 5 minutes of the movie exclusively to VR or something like that, just to sort of thank us for, like, you know, being involved in it from the beginning. That'd be cool. Like maybe partnership with HTC, and then they sort of announce like 5 minutes of the movie exclusively with HTC. That would have been way cooler in my mind. But yeah, you know, anything is better than nothing at the end of the day. But for the best Ready Player One VR experience right now, I would recommend you go and check out the Sanzar experience. So Sanzar is made by the people that did Second Life. It's sanzar.com. And then once you've downloaded that application, it's not available on Steam or Oculus, but you can download the H's Garage Ready Player One experience and walk through H's Garage, which is a character from the movie, and see all the iconic vehicles that are going to feature in the movie. So that's the most polished and interesting VR experience you can get involved with right now for the movie.
Yeah, cool.
So next snippet of news is that obviously last episode we talked heavily about the HTC Vive Pro. I got to try it hands-on, and I thought it was a very positive experience. I thought it was a really cool piece of kit. But we didn't know then, you know, when it's releasing or the price. And it's been rumored right now, and this is rumor, like it hasn't officially been told, but the rumor is that it's going to be $799 for the headset alone. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's pretty steep. Like, it was really on the high end of my estimate of what it was going to cost just for the headset.
It's not steep. It's not steep at all. I really don't think it's steep. It's actually still cheaper than the original release of the Vive.
But this is just for the headset. This isn't including anything else. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, it's aimed at people who already own an HTC Vive, I think. It's not aimed at people who want to buy an HTC Vive right now. I think it's really aimed at someone, or people that are in the prosumer kind of stuff, you know, that they want to have like the newest kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's a marginal upgrade. It's like it's not even, you can't call this a Vive 2.0 or something. It's a Vive 1.2 maybe, you know. It's like a little upgrade to what we already have.
I agree that, you know, a lot of the really high-end enthusiast levels, people will buy it, obviously, because they, you know, they're the kind of people that buy the latest iPhone, like we sort of said last episode. But if you compare the price to what kind of other experiences you can have in VR, like you could buy 2 Rift bundles for this, you know, like with touch controllers. You know, you could buy 4 Oculus Go's, like on release.
You can buy 3 Android phones for 1 iPhone.
Yeah, that's true.
But there will always be people that want to have, you know, that little bit of upgrade, and even you don't only pay for the little upgrade, you pay for the brand that HTC stands for the Vive they stand for. And by all means, I'm not telling anyone to go and buy it. I mean, the difference between the HTC Vive and the Oculus is marginal. I mean, it depends more on personal preference, if you ask me, or the kind of games that you play. I think that's a huge factor as well. But in terms of like upgrade, Yeah, okay, but it pushes the market a bit further. That's maybe a good thing.
I totally admire what they're doing. Like, don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of people in the community were disappointed about this price point. Like, we kind of guessed that it was going to be high, right? Like, we all kind of guessed it was going to be high.
But they already. How much does the HTC Vive go for now? Let me look.
I think it's like $699 in a bundle with the trackers and the controllers.
So okay, and then but you can't buy it separately, I think. Can you?
No. So I think this is just, at the moment, it's just going to be released as a standalone headset as an upgrade, and then later on you can buy it as a full package, which will probably, my guess will be like $1,200.
The price of this thing is getting so ridiculous. Like, the graphics card you need, the headset you need, the trackers, the knuckles are eventually released. Like, you'd be spending nearly $2,000 just on the equipment. I think it is a very silly decision, financially speaking, for someone to choose that instead of, for instance, buying a Rift with a wheel, a hot S, a butt kicker. Like, get all that stuff. You've got 10 times the experience than buying the Vive, which will struggle on the graphics card that you can't afford to pick up.
Or can't find, for that matter.
Or can't even find. Oh my god.
But like we mentioned previously as well, it's really aimed at industry, right? So if you want the highest end product, this is the one you're going to get.
What you could do for those kind of people that want the highest end product and already have an HTC Vive, sell your old Vive and then spend a little bit more to buy the Vive Pro. But I don't think that the difference is, like I said last time as well, I don't think the difference is big enough to convince me, for example, to buy that out of the blue.
But let's say, like, for example, like Thorpe Park, which is like a theme park in this country, right? They've got a ride that uses VR on the ride itself. So it's like a train ride, and you put a HTC Vive on, actually. But I think this is kind of what they'll probably do, because they're the kind of people that have got the big pockets, right? That can spend this amount of money to give their people that are coming to the park the best possible experience.
I don't know, if you're a manager for a park like that and you know about wear and tear, and you're going to put through whatever it is, 2,000 people in a week through that experience, I don't know. Are they really going to, I mean, unless they're jacking the prices up or something, are they going to recoup off of the back of that? I mean, they could.
Let's be honest about it, like a ride like this that uses VR as opposed to a traditional roller coaster is probably going to cost a fraction of the price. So you can invest more money into the hardware to make it the best possible experience for your riders, right?
Usually, if you look at those things, even for all the, the like 3D rooms that they have with backpack PCs, most of them go for like these proprietary Chinese knockoffs of the Vive or something like that.
Yeah,
they don't
that's the reason. You don't
go
need
for the equipment that
such
has the name brand and go through all of that.
You don't need such. The only thing that I would think that would be interesting for such a company is if they have a business edition, will of course be even more expensive, because there comes a certain kind of service that is associated with that. Yeah. But for the remainder, I think that for like roller coaster parks and that kind of stuff, I think that stuff like the Oculus Go is a much more better solution.
I think with the Go, though, because it's limited with its 3 degrees of freedom, so you really need that 6 degrees of freedom in a headset, I think, to make it a compelling experience.
For a seated experience?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Especially if you're moving, like, if you're in a moving train or something like that.
I'm going to put my hat in here. I never, ever again want to not have 6 degrees of freedom. But I know that for $200, you can't make a headset necessarily in that price range. With the content
but don't forget, we are spoiled with technology. I mean, we all have several headsets. I mean, we're spoiled with this.
I'm the poor one of the crew, so
Not yet, right? But the thing is, with a lot of those like amusement parks, there's a ton of people who have never even put a headset on their face.
No, that's true.
So I think something that is as polished, and with the Oculus Go. I mean, just think of the first time you put a DK1 on your face.
Oh yeah, I was like completely blown away. Absolutely, yeah. So that is the rumor. Obviously, $799 is the rumor, but we'll know as soon as we get the concrete facts of when it's going to be released and the actual price. We'll obviously talk about it again on the show and let you guys know the full facts.
Before you switch topics, Mike, one thing which we should talk about: the fact that Oculus Rift versus HTC Vive, there's been a switch in terms of who's got more market share, and Oculus is now out in the lead for the first time since their release, I imagine.
First time ever, yeah.
Which I actually think
says...
First time ever.
Yeah, first time ever. I mean, HTC wasn't in the running back in the DK2 era, so, you know, as a fan of what Oculus has done, I really think they're putting down the right bets. Like, when we were at Oculus Connect this past summer, when the Oculus Go went on stage and $200 for this device, it's like, that is the right move. Bring VR to the masses. Like, you know what the PSVR has done? It has really done that. It's opened it up. People can afford it. And I'm hearing loads of people now who have a headset who are like, yeah, I just might splash and pick up a PSVR Pro with the PSVR as well. Yeah. Fucking, if you want the content, do it for the access. But that's a great thing. People are considering, non-creators are considering multiple headsets at this stage.
Yeah, and also if you look at the strategy that both PlayStation and Oculus have been going, it's content creation first.
Yeah, and that's where it should go.
And I think that is a very, very smart strategy.
Yeah, if you're interested in the stats, I've got the stats here actually. So this is the Steam hardware survey. You can get this information straight from Steam directly. So these are the numbers right now. So 45.38% is the Vive, 47.31% is the Rift, 5.36% is Windows Mixed Reality, and then 1.95% is the DK2 users. Stick in there, bros. Hold it down.
Nice.
Yeah, this totally reminds me of the browser war. You know, I don't know if you guys, I know for those of us in Europe anyway, I don't know, Rowdy, what it was like for you, but for us in the UK, like when Google Chrome was making its push, God, it fucking was everywhere. You know what I mean? Like you were driving along the road, it was up on these massive bulletin boards. Like they marketed that like crazy, and they went from like 5% of the market. They're dominating. They're like at 70% or something now. It's ridiculous.
I use it.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, same here. I'm not going to use it for this. So it's like, good job, Google. But I mean, I really do think that since, out the gates, Oculus had problems, right? We had that whole mystery component shortage that delayed the CV1 coming out. Many of you may not know about that. Like, if you had pre-ordered, your order came maybe a month later, or 6 months later, or month later or 6 weeks later than it should have originally. And we never actually got to know what it was. I still think it was probably Xbox controllers, you know, and it was Microsoft to let them down. And you don't feck about when you have a partnership with someone like Microsoft. So, no, but we'll never know.
But I'd be interested to know also in the chat, like, what are the percentage of like Vive users to Rift users? Like, I don't want to start like a fanboy war here or anything like that.
Do it.
But I'd just be intrigued to know because, you know, it's like 50-50. Like, you know, it's whichever you prefer. It's like peanut butter or jelly. Like, choose which one you like.
Just don't.
But both go together nicely.
Do not say Google Cardboard to me. I will hunt you. I have a special set of skills, and that's smelling cardboard.
You can smell cardboard. Okay. So, right, let's move on to our first main topic, and that is Rec Room. The Pirate Quest has recently launched. This Seattle-based studio, Against Gravity, who make Rec Room, are at it again. And these guys are just, like, non-stop. They're, like, piling in with the updates. You know, we've had some really great content with from them over the last few months, and they just keep pushing up like updates. Like every time I turn on my Rift and I turn on Oculus Home, there's always an update. Always. So as annoying as it is, I do admire the fact that they're constantly reiterating their software and like making new experiences.
It is a little annoying, I have to say. It's like Rec Room's updating again. Feck it.
Yeah,
but
and they're like normally big updates as well.
They're good updates.
But what I find amazing about Rec Room is that it's still free to this very day, and they're doing it so well. Like, they've got the PSVR, they've got it on Rift, they've got it on Vive. It works across platforms.
And it works well.
It works well.
Insanely well.
All this new content, all these kind of games you can play together, co-op adventures, social. It's
basically like 5 or 6 games that you buy that you get with one title.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff in there.
Yeah. And if you know, it would definitely be in the top 5 of free experiences for anyone to try that gets a VR headset, whether it be the PSVR, the HTC Vive, or the Oculus Rift. It would be like, yeah, what do I need to play and what's free because I just spent all this money on a headset? What can I play for free? Rec Room is without doubt one of the ones that I would always recommend.
You know what I think by what it replaces? I think it actually, if you take Steam VR Home, Oculus Home, even with Dash and all that, it kind of does that better. Like, I almost feel like if I was sitting in a boardroom with these guys, I'd say, you know what you should do, guys? Okay, you go free across all the platforms, and then all of a sudden, you say to the three, okay, guess what? We're going to auction, and one of you can take us and just bolt onto your home, and infect the other two. And you just name your price. Now go, auction, bid, right? And be like, I'm going to shut down my service on the other two platforms. Because they have so much clout right now. It's really great to see it. But yeah, who's paying for this? Who's paying for this?
Doesn't happen. It must be like, people must be backing this in terms of like, you know, funding this. There must be. But then again, like, I was looking into the studio because the studio is, you know, what I was going to say... They've done tons of stuff like in the past, and they're like really sort of pushing hard. And they must be getting funding somewhere because you can't do this for free forever, right? You've got to monetize it at some point. But it doesn't look like they're going to monetize it in terms of like outfits or anything like that, because you can earn in-game currency from doing the quests. So they must be earning their money from elsewhere. But what I really love is their main value. Like I went onto their website. And as their main values, like this is one of them, it's like listening to customer feedback and iterating constantly, and that's exactly what they've been doing. Like, you know, listening to what the community want and then making sure they implement it. Because, you know, this new co-op adventure that they've got, which is called Isle of the Lost Skulls, is a really polished experience. Like, we jumped into it, and we didn't know anything about it before jumping in, right? And we were kind of... on this, is it like a ship, do you think?
Galleon.
You're on a galleon
ship, yeah.
And we're kind of like stuck in this room, and then like, what do we have to do now? So how do we get out of this like locked room? So then we like realized that you have to pick up a stool and then like knock the padlock off, and then we went on this adventure together. It was really cool.
It was so fun.
Are they still in early access, actually? Is this still an early access
I don't think
or
so.
Or is this already a full release?
I think they're like fully released now.
I think there was a release last
because
year.
I remember a thread on Reddit where they were talking about how can this game be free when it's basically so good, and I just found that thread again, and they said back then in early access that early access will be free, and that they later plan to do optional payment additions to the game.
Right. Content push. Okay,
but
so they'll
I
do a
actually
DLC
don't, because I thought it was actually already out of early. Oh no, it's still in early access at the moment.
But we still haven't seen that yet, and yet they're still
no,
releasing
we still haven't.
great content for free.
The only thing is, I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. I've been hearing a lot of people complaining about the age of people in Rec Room, that it's like a lot of kids that play the game. We often don't have that problem because we play together with so many VR content creators that we are always, you know, with a certain group in there. But I mean, that is a thing that should be addressed in a way, and I know that they in the past they've tried to address this by like putting an age limit on the game and trying to keep those kind of people out, but often that doesn't really work. And I don't know how they would, but it is an issue.
If you compare it to like VR chat, for example, and I know the kind of hype around VR chat seems to have died off dramatically now, but that was like a more adult area. It felt like very different. Do you know what I mean? Like you could go into VR chat and it was like hardcore adult content, and then like you went into Rec Room and like you say, you were kind of a lot of kids around. And they're just kind of screaming and doing crazy stuff. But like you say, because we kind of jump in and play together, like if you've got a team of people that play together with, then you're just going to still have a blast. Like, don't get me wrong, not everyone in it is a kid, but, you know, there is a lot of kids in there.
Of course not.
I think it's kind
of also,
funny,
I just found...
my spin on this, I've always had, I've had quite a range of ages in my audiences, and I suppose on Twitch you have to be careful because they've got a 13-year-old like limit, but I still remember like on PSVR in Farpoint, when Farpoint PvP came out, I was playing with a dude who was like 40 and like 11-year-old. And this guy, this 11-year-old, like he was just so fucking on it. Like he knew his stuff, and he was schooling everything around him, and he was like protecting both of us, pulling us up, and it was like, dude, this is awesome. And sometimes you play with someone like that who's young, but is like ultra mature. So I think what you're saying, Rowdy and Mike, is there is definitely it's almost like a signal to noise ratio issue where you need something to be able to control that noise to a level that makes it a pleasant experience.
Can mute people, of course, but sometimes there's so many in there that it can be a problem, I guess, for some people. For me, I'm not talking for myself now. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. It's just that's something that I've been seeing going around as well. And also, really quickly regarding the funding, the money is apparently Rec Room developers secured $5 million in funding, and they pledged to keep the game free, and that was on February 2nd of 2017 that this article was posted. It's quite a nice.
And that's the thing, like if you were a parent and you'd invested in a VR headset, you know, if you were gonna let your kids experience VR, like maybe that's maybe that's
I
the
put
one.
my kids in affected straight away.
Straight into dread halls. enjoy that. Sleep well, little Timmy. You know, you can enjoy this one.
Evil will do that.
Yeah, we don't condone that. Just FYI. But yeah, like I think that's what people do. They put their kids into Rec Room because it's kind of got that cartoony kind of look about it. But I think what they don't really realize is they're interacting with a lot of adults, which can be a bit risky sometimes. So yeah, there is a lot of kids in there. But like in terms of the actual new experience, like how did you guys find it? Like because you've played Rise of Jumbotron previously, right, Zim, and completed that, right?
Good question.
Don't know if you completed it or not.
Beaten it? I've certainly played. I've played pretty much about done everything in Rec Room except for the kind of room creator. So I've got good experience with it. But their RPGs are bloody hard. Like these multiplayer quests, which I think the thing that stood out to me was the other ones were all 4-player experiences, and I think they listened to the feedback and said, "Well, what if I only have 3 people?" And so
but is it only 3 people?
Experience.
Is it only 3 people?
This one, yeah.
Yeah.
But like you said, we got schooled on this one, right?
We got fucking schooled.
we went in and, you know, it's kind of mostly melee weapons. So you've got like swords that you can like play around with. And you've got like skeleton crews coming at you with swords as well. And there's kind of like when a skeleton like swings at you, if you parry it with your sword, then it kind of opens them up to attack them, which is a really smart mechanic and makes the gameplay really fun and interesting to play. And then you can pick up like bottles and potions and throw them at them as well, so you kind of got this throw mechanic. But it was a lot of fun, but like it was really hard. And a bit like Rise of Jumbotron, that was really hard as well. When you actually finally nail it and you get past the level, like I'd imagine the satisfaction is really high because you're like,
the satisfaction is really high. I like the I'd imagine. And I'd also say that these guys, the devs, have obviously been playing too much Zelda Breath of the Wild because they've brought indestructible weapons. And so you're there like, you're not only battling things coming from all directions, you have weapons that degrade, and like you can get a frying pan that breaks off at the handle, and you get the swords and they degrade and warp and then they fall apart, and you're like in the middle of battle like hitting things and your weapons are degrading. I think it's great. But we haven't seen that in the previous editions in Rec Room, so wanted to call that out.
Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure if it's only for 3 players. Because I've been reading on articles where people have been playing it with 4.
Okay.
All right.
I'm not sure. Maybe people in the chat can that have already tried it can help us out on that one.
3, but I guess it's all right.
Yeah. But like the problem is, like at the beginning, like before you start the round, you've got this lobby area, and then you've got all these like really cool like pirate costumes, and all 3 of us like, oh yeah, they look really cool. I'd love one of those pirate costumes. And then you have to earn gold from doing the quest to buy one, right? And then so we were earning tons of gold, and we were like, yeah, we're doing actually really well. We really do well. We got to the last room, I think 3 times, and we got wrecked in that last room like 3 times. And when you die, you lose all your gold. Well, it's kind of like left behind. So if you go back and finish it, you can earn it back.
At the moment, there's a lot of gold in that room. You know, there's a lot of gold.
So much gold. Maybe we could have bought one of those costumes, but
like okay,
we didn't do it.
Mike. So just to be clear here, and just because pride is on the line here, how much gold did we finish with?
I have no idea. 0.
Yeah.
Zero gold, because we didn't finish it. That's the problem. We never got past the first level, so we kind of noobs. But I'd love to go in actually, because if it wasn't so late, I would have kept pushing. But it was getting late, and like Zim was streaming the whole thing, and they're like, for your viewers, I was getting a bit like wary of the fact that they're just gonna watch us get wrecked 3 times over. So I was like, this can't be good.
Don't worry, Mike. They're used to me getting wrecked in just about everything, including the tutorial in, what was it? The tutorial in From Other Suns, right?
From Other Suns. I remember watching that.
The devs were saying how that never
happened.
That
was a disgrace.
They'd never seen someone die in a tutorial before.
Anyway.
First time ever. Yeah. But yeah, like I really admire Rec Room, what they're doing with these updates. I really think their content is great. If you've just picked up a VR headset and you're looking for free content because you've blown all your cash on it and a shiny new headset, then Rec Room is definitely one you should go and check out.
Yeah.
Actually, they're holding a contest right now, so if you're a bit creative, you can actually enter this contest and build a custom room. This is running till the 12th of March. If you win, you can win like a Nintendo Switch, Ready Player One movie tickets. So if you're a bit of a creative person, you're trying to get into level design maybe, you want to show off some cool ideas, you never know, you might get a job at the end of it as well. But you can enter this competition by going to the dev website, which is againstgrav.com. And enter your sort of design there and create the actual room itself in Rec Room. So that's kind of interesting as well.
Actually, just talking about dev names, like there's, for some reason, VR dev names the studios tend to have like crazy names. I think Against Grav is a really nice name because it's kind of that whole like swimming upstream, and I always like that kind of vibe. So yeah, it really stands out to me. Against Grav is a good name. Good job, devs.
Yeah. Nice work. So moving on from Rec Room to another game which is really, really cool and really polished and also available on PSVR, and it is, of course, Moss. This is going to be a PSVR exclusive. It's a third-person game where you guide Quill, a tiny little cute mouse, on an epic adventure to fight and solve puzzles. And like from what I've seen of this game, it looks absolutely awesome. Like in terms of like the graphical art style, I think it looks really charming and beautiful environments sort of to go and explore. And it's one of those PSVR games that's really made me think about going out and buying a PSVR recently. The thing is, like, there's not really been any other game that's really had a pull on me this hard, because like I always knew that Resident Evil 7 was going to come to PC VR eventually, so I was kind of like, oh, I'll wait. But I know that this is never going to come to any other platform because it's going to be a PlayStation exclusive. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it and to see if it's worthwhile me going and blowing 700 quid on a PS4 Pro and a PSVR headset.
You can go first, Sim. You had experience with the demo, right?
Yeah, so so I kind of got... I queued up for whatever it was, an hour and a half or something, and got to play the demo about a year ago. And then they released the Moss demo. I think it was on the second PSVR demo disc.
Right.
So I'd say the things that stand out to it are animation. Straight off the bat, animation. Like the sword play in it. Your little mouse character actually has a sword and is running around and solving puzzles. So there's two things that really stand out to me about this title. So art is obvious, right? But I'll extend that to animation. So the animations feel like, if you know the difference between like 30 FPS and 60 FPS and that fluidity, that's what I see in the animations. Oftentimes the motion capture isn't so fine, and for that to be shown in a PSVR title is actually astounding in that environment, that VR environment. And liking other games in this space like Lucky's Tale and Chronos, third player games, I'm quite a fan of it. And I think until you try it in VR, you're like, what the fuck? Why are you doing VR third person? Like, why does this make any sense? It totally does. Another great game, by the way, is Blaze Rush, which is kind of a cutesy toy racer game, which is also multiplayer, but unfortunately not cross-platform. But Moss, so animations was one part. Second part to me was, I would say, I've lost my train of thought here now. Tell you what, Rowdy, if I think of it, I'll let you know.
But from what I've seen, and I'll just sort of chime in here a little bit, is that it's one of those games that you can really build a connection with the character, right? Because Quill, this little tiny mouse, he is super adorable, by the way. And what I really like about some games is that you kind of feel like you have this need to protect the character that you're playing, right?
They play that out very well in the game.
I'll
tell you about that in a moment.
Because what I found recently, to kind of compare it to something I've played, is like in the Tomb Raider reboots, right, where you play as Lara, but she gets like bashed up and she like gets spiked by a rod, and you're like, oh, that sucks. And then she's like in the cold and she's shivering, and you kind of feel this like need that you really have to take care of her, and you kind of build this connection with her, right? So that's kind of what I saw when I watched the trailer for Moss, is that, and I saw a little bit of Nathie's video, him playing as well. Like, he was like petting Moss and like stroking his head, and I just thought it was really cool that you had this.
You can
awesome
feel its heartbeat
connection. Yeah.
when you touch it. You can feel the heartbeat of the mouse.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I love that.
That's at least
really
that's
cool
what I think that it is. I think that it's those kind of things indeed that make this title like really stand. First off, like you already said, like the animations of the mouse itself, it feels alive when it's there. The way it's jumping, the way it's looking at you, the way that it moves, it's so fluid and so well done. It feels like it's actually there, and that's the first time.
We need to credit you, Rowdy, here, because you deal with mice, so you know.
Yeah.
Right? You know.
Well, not those kind of mice,
Yeah.
But no, it feels really really polished, the amount of animations. And a second part is the scenes that you've been placed in. And then I don't mean like the structures where you need to jump on, but the background of it it's phenomenal. I had this like part where you have like these deer in the background, and they move as well. Like it's like a moving background that you have, and the deers. And when you like walk past, you like look up in the distance, and you can see them like looking around. I kind of got a little bit of that vibe. I don't know if you guys know like Little Nightmares. That game.
Oh no, I did play that. Yeah, I did play that. Yes.
Yeah, it has that like kind of vibe of like there's a lot going on in the background.
Yes.
Which doesn't really matter a lot to the specific scene or the specific game that you're in, and they do that really well because you feel like you're in like this very massive world, but you're just like a little tiny mouse, and they play that out very well. Where like they place like for example, there's a sword that is like sticking out, but the sword looks absolutely massive next to you. They do that very well, and it's indeed that connection that you get with the mouse that is very well played. I'm not a platformer fan at all. Like I don't really enjoy platforming games, but the way that they do this, it's much more than just a platformer. Also, for example, you've done something right, and then the mouse looks at you, and he sticks his hand out, and you can go, and you can give him like a little high five, which
That's
is
awesome.
It sounds stupid, but it works so well. And I know that Nathie back in the chat also said like that he had like a little bit of he was wondering like, is this a first-person game or a third-person game? Because you're actually, of course you control Quill, but you're not playing as Quill.
Nope.
You're playing as some kind of spirit creature that is quite big, that is called the Reader. Like you're playing as a character, and you're looking through his eyes, and everything plays out in front of you, and you can manipulate and control the scene, which is a really neat concept because it kind of fluctuates a little bit between that first person and third person kind of perspective, which is something that could only work in VR. And that is something that is unique to this game.
Exactly.
Go ahead,
this
Tim.
is the thing. That's exactly what that's the point I was missing earlier, Rowdy, was it's single player asynchronous gameplay. I've not seen it in another title where you are playing kind of two characters at once. You said you're not really playing Quill. You're still controlling where Quill moves around in his attacks.
Of course.
But you're actually playing, that, what would you call it, the Reader?
The Reader, that's how that character is called.
Kind of overbearing spirit that has kind of a Zelda-esque feel to it, and you manipulate the world. So I've not seen that.
And also another thing that I haven't seen a lot in any reviews is the audio of this is phenomenal. It's I have not experienced any game like this with audio as good as this one. And then I don't only talk about like the background music and the scenes, the way that the audio is positioned is unbelievable. I've not experienced this before. There were moments, because you have like, you're in this forest and you have like those forest sounds that go around. I was playing in the morning and we have a lot of pigeons that fly around here. And there was a point that I took my headset off and I was like, where is that bloody pigeon? Because, it's getting on my nerves. And it was only then that I realized there was a pigeon, and it sounded like it was coming from like behind me, like on the right side somewhere, that I actually thought there was a pigeon somewhere, like, on my window, like doing it.
Can we please have like pictures of Rowdy with a pigeon behind him in the chat, please? I'd love to see this.
Like I was like, why is that pigeon like screwing up my recording here? And it was when I put my headset back on that I realized that I was actually positional audio on the back of me making that pigeon sound, which is insane. It's insane how well that works. Yeah. And also like you have like every time you go to a new scene or a new chapter, you have that page flick that happens, and it goes literally from behind you, from the left to the right. You hear that page flick, like it's so well done. The audio in this is I have not experienced anything like this.
I'm going to echo and just say that the use of quiet and using, again, the ambient attention that they paid in this does stand out. So the visuals, the animations, the audio. There's definitely, if this is your style of game, I think you'll love it.
Yeah, and this is the thing, like, I love platformers, and like I say, I really enjoyed, like, Tomb Raider, I really enjoyed, like, Lucky's Tale and Chronos as well, and that's why, when I saw this, I was like, oh, man, maybe I should go and pick up a PSVR, and from what you guys have been saying, like, it's super positive about it. What I would be interested to know is, like, do you think it is missing anything because it doesn't have any move controls? Because you just use the PlayStation controller, right?
In a way, I think it would become better if you would have move controls, but then you would need move controls with a thumbstick though, because I don't really understand how you would do a platformer without a thumbstick.
Right.
So without a thumbstick, I would not want it to be on a move controller.
Right.
And also a thing I've been seeing in the chat that people have been pointing out, Quill is a female mouse. Female, very important.
Right, she's a female mouse. I didn't know that she was a female mouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really cool.
Do you know anything about the story that goes on?
Jump in a chat point here, guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
PD mentioned something, Mike, because you were talking about Resident Evil 7. Apparently, Resident Evil 7. This is the rumor mill, apparently talking, but apparently they renewed their lease on exclusivity for the PlayStation, which makes total sense. You're gonna have to buy a PlayStation and join us, Mike.
It's like 700 quid. It's like. It's so annoying. But anyway, first one.
Oh man, I see your counter there. You have 11,428 subscribers. You're doing fine, man.
Yeah, not allowed to buy a PSVR, maybe. But yeah, like I would be interested to play this one, definitely. You know, I love, like you say, the interaction with the character. I really like the look of it. It's got puzzle elements to it as well, which I enjoy.
And the storytelling. The storytelling
as well, yeah,
phenomenal.
it looks really cool. And I was actually, the developer is Polyarc, and I'd never really heard of them before, so I actually did some research into what titles they've worked on previously. And they also worked in collaboration with titles such as Destiny, Red Dead Redemption, Halo 3, and Dragon Age. So they've got some real pedigree in their studio in terms of like game developers. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
That's probably why this game is so polished and such a cool title from a developer that necessarily we haven't really heard that much of before. But yeah, it's great. It's available now, obviously, if you want to pick it up. I think it's like $29.99 in US dollars and $29.99 in British pounds on the PlayStation Store, of course. And then maybe you'll hear next week that I've gone out and like splashed a load of money to go and experience it for myself. Who knows? But I'd love to know your thoughts in the chat. Like, if you've played this, what other titles that you recommend? If I was going to go out and get a PSVR, what other titles you'd recommend me go and check out as well?
The one thing I was going to just say on this, being the typical cynic here, I have a concern that the gameplay flattens out. A lot of games like this, they tend to lose their magic mid to long in the title. I feel like Lucky's Tale did that, and I wonder if the mechanics are enough. Like for me, I actually found, even in the demos, some of the puzzling was just a little bit frustrating in terms of the mechanics. And although I was in love with the creature and the animations and the sound and the visuals, that frustration meter, like in a game like
I know
this,
what you mean.
I feel like you shouldn't be, you know, gripping your controller hard. It should be kind of a modicum level of difficulty, but maybe you guys will disagree with me.
Is it because the game's hard or because the mechanics are not quite right?
It was more a feel. It was like it's like a flavor. It's hard to say that it's not like a broken mechanic. The mechanics are intelligent. Right. But I didn't find the mechanics particularly fun. Like having to rotate a tower around this way so that, you know, mouse goes in. If they do that same puzzle again and again and again, Rowdy, tell me, you played 2 hours of the game in so far, so
yeah,
is it a lot of repetition of the same kind of puzzling?
I have not encountered the same kind of puzzling yet. I mean, the puzzles are getting like progressively harder, of course. You know, the first ones are quite simple, just like learning the mechanics a little bit. And then it gets like, you get like some enemies as well, like that like, they look like little scarabaeus, like the ones that I've encountered yet, like that like attack you. Yeah. And you can control them as well as the reader yourself. You can control those kind of creatures as well, and you can try to like move them around to go to certain points, or you need to shoot at certain things. So I have the puzzling so far has been really diverse. I'm not a big fan of puzzling. I hate it when I need to figure something out and I can't figure it out. It frustrates me to the most. I have not gotten to that point yet, so that's a good thing. But I do understand what you mean with that it can be frustrating sometimes in terms of mechanics, because this is also in VR, which is an extra level that you place on top of that. And since you can't control the camera any other way than with your headset, if you don't set up your camera properly, like I have like 95% of the time, you get like out of bounds or out of space, or like, you know, you need to like move a little bit further. You really need to, and this is partly my fault and partly VR's fault maybe. You need to really have a proper setup and set up your room accordingly before like complaining about this actually. So actually, I shouldn't be complaining. You know, I should just
right.
learn my lesson and
stop whining, Rowdy.
Yeah, Mike, two weeks from now, when you're a proud PSVR owner, you come back here and you'll be like, fucking the tracking. Because what I find is the depth of the tracking alert on PSVR is a lot more shallow. And what happens is, as a user of the other systems, the other Guardian-based systems, you trigger it more frequently. If you're just a PSVR user, I don't think you'll notice. But if you switch between the systems, you'll be like, God, it just irks you that little bit. And when you're playing with it for 2 or 3 hours, you're like, you know, it just starts to get on your nerves. So know about it before you take the jump, Mike. But the thing I've found is if you push the PSVR camera as far away from you as you can, it's kind of like the DK2. Put it at least 5 feet away, preferably 10. And, you know, then it can see you just fine, honestly.
Yeah. Nice tips. Nice tips. But then again, like, I don't have enough time to play all the Oculus content right now, or the content on Steam VR right now. So, like,
welcome to our world, you know.
First world problems. I need to quit my job and just play games all day, like VR games. That's what I need to do. So moving on from Moss, we're going to be talking about a game called Rolling Lines. Now, recently on the show, I think it was like last episode or maybe the episode before, we were talking about Hidden Paths, Brass Tactics. You know, we all kind of had fun playing that game, and what we kind of all described about it was that we liked the fact that it was a big table arena that you can just kind of play on, and then we were kind of saying, you know, it would be cool to use this kind of concept to have like a train set simulator or like a Warhammer game or, you know, that kind of thing. Because when I was a kid, you know, I remember one of my dad's friends had one of these big tabletops set out in the basement, and he had these like kind of like World War II like figurines that he had like reenacted in a scene, and it kind of looked really cool. But like space is like limited, right? So like not everyone.
Are you one of those kids?
So yeah, like doing this, having this in VR where you can sort of lay out a table scene and like have your own sort of train set and sort of build it and spend hours and hours like meticulously placing trees and scenery seems really cool. And finally, we're getting that in terms of this game called Rolling Lines. So I don't know what you guys think of this. Like, are you sort of into this, or are you just kind of like on the edge? Because I think you were interested, Zim, right? You were the one that mentioned about train sets.
Yeah, thank you.
You were one of those kids.
I'm not an adult train set kind of guy, but I would say that games like this remind me of
There's nothing wrong with it, Zim.
No one judge, right? Yes, none of us judge that. But it's like Little Big Planet, if anyone knows that game. So there's a lot of set design that you can do. In my gaming experience, I'm generally not the person who has, 6 hours free to be able to create a scene and then impress someone about it. I think if I was single on my own and had free time, I would probably spend some time doing that, doing something creative, because I'm a creative kind of dude. But the thing I have to say is I will absolutely get super excited about running this. I think mundane stuff like driving a truck or fishing or driving a train are actually really awesome in VR. And actually Mike said something very interesting, which was, he went in to be a DJ and he found it to look quite tough because it's like being a real life DJ. And that's great, because then you actually are learning some skills if you stick with it, right? And the same thing is true here. I think that you have the exposure to the kind of what is it like being a train conductor. And if you have the artistic flair and you have the time, then you can most definitely build the environment. I most certainly will not be the one building, but I will critique people's environments.
Well, the cool thing about this is they said, like, on their trailer, I think, that you can either spend hours and hours building your own environment and laying your track out the way you want it, or there are going to be preset tracks that you can just jump in and just kind of look around and explore from different angles. But the cool thing about this is that you can actually jump into first person and ride the train as well. Yeah. So once you've built your track and your scenery and you spent ages, you're like, okay, now I'm going to climb on my train and sit in it and just let the scenery
But there's so many things that you can do with this, because there's going to be people that can be creating like an entire world, from the ground up, like simulating kind of like countries or like different kind of scenes. And if they're smart, they add a fantasy element to it, so you can drive through the landscape of Lord of the Rings, go through the mines of Moria. Right.
Like, imagine if they released DLC content where you could buy King's Cross or St. Pancras Station, like from London or something like that, and recreate that. That would be
no joke. I hope that they're listening.
Isn't it St. Pancras?
St. Pancras? Isn't that what I said?
Is pancreas not an organ in your body? Isn't it St. Pancras?
I don't know. I don't even go to London that often. That's why.
St.
Score one for the American, half American.
So go for it. How's it pronounced, Zim?
St. Pancras.
St. Pancreas.
There's no E.
No, St. Pancras.
Pancras. Yeah. Anyway. but
anyway,
like,
if the developers are listening.
The only thing I think, and this is really sad for the developers, I'm sorry, developers, but it's like, don't give me a train game. I want to build a roller coaster and ride it in first person. That's the game, But we actually already have that, to be fair. No Limits 2 is a very good simulator and builder, but you can only build in 2D, which is really sad. But I love the idea. If they open it up to modders, I think that would be the key for this. Because if they keep to their set pieces and their tiling, it will vastly limit it. But I'm glad what you said, Mike, is true about the game, which is they're releasing it with some content to do. And it's not just a content creation engine, because those kinds of games, I've seen plenty of them run. They all fall flat on their face, when it's just we're not giving you anything,
if the developers are listening, what they should do, before Jurassic Park World releases, give me a train ride through the freaking park with dinosaurs. Even in the art style that they're portraying now, I definitely check that out.
Even on rails? Like, you're fine if it's
on rails. On rails. No, on rails. Look outside the window and see a dinosaur.
Me too.
So
I'll be completely done with that.
advice for Gauge Punk Games, who are the ones that made this, is add dinosaurs.
Add dinosaurs. Add dinosaurs.
What does this game lack? Dinosaurs. That's what it is.
But that's it. Make it.
I love it.
You know how many videos I'd make on that? Titled Jurassic Park World in VR. Yeah, I definitely watched that.
Clickbait, here we go.
Clickbait.
So yeah, if you're into these tabletop kind of games, I love that these are kind of becoming a thing. I hope they become a thing anyway, because like a Warhammer game would be interesting as well, I think. And maybe like you said, a roller coaster tycoon type game where you can design a roller coaster and then similar sort of thing, you can go and ride it, would be really cool as well. But the great thing is, like you say, some people will just take this and run with it, and that's what I'm excited to see.
Just think of the possibilities, like the train ride through Gotham City.
Yeah.
I'd check that out.
Go another level here. We were talking about Rec Room and how that could be the better version of Oculus Home or Vive Home. If you had something like this, if you took the kind of gorgeous set design that you have, and you could invite people over to your virtual home, and you had this thing to either A, ride along on together, make it multiplayer, or B, just have it in your space. Like, there's those guys who spend years of their life like focusing on the details and the train work and setting this all up. Those people still exist, right? And they're going to eat up something like this. But if you can share it and take it out of the garage to the basement and actually bring people over, lots of people, then it becomes like this global competition of, how creative can you be, or what can you do? And like you guys said, right, with the modding side to it, Rolling Line could be a real centerpiece to all of that.
Yeah.
I think the great thing with this is, like, when you're building this or like Scale Electrics in real life, you always like come up with a really cool track and you get to the end and you're like missing like a piece. And you're like, oh, like I'm missing a piece, I can't finish it. Whereas obviously you'll never have that problem in this game because the pieces are limited. This is virtual reality after all, and it's got some cool weather effects as well. But I really like
the state that the game is in now. I would definitely check it out because it already looks gorgeous, even without doing dinosaurs.
The art style, the vibrant art style, looks really nice. I have to say, props to the developers for that. And I'm sure people will jump on this. But like you said, Tim, I think one major feature that I would love to see in this is that if you create something, I'd love to be able to like say, okay, let me ride the train and the track that Zim made, through his little world. That's what I want.
You just came up with a brilliant idea there, Mike, and you didn't even say it. Which is, why can't we like do the Minecraft equivalent? Why can't we work on a set together? Be floating headsets in the same space, multiplayer hovering over. Come on.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah. Although you would get people like Rowdy in there that would always like troll you and like put the track the wrong way. I just
add dinosaurs everywhere, like dinosaurs.
Like, Jesus, put the dinosaurs down, Rowdy. Come on, we've got to build a track, man. So yeah, this is coming out on the 6th of April. It's going to be available on the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive on Steam. But also, if you don't have a virtual reality headset and you're excited about this title, good news for you, there also is going to be a pancake version of this game as well. So if you're into designing trains, train sets and stuff like that, and you don't have a VR headset, then you can experience this as well. You're not being left out.
We have people in the chat saying 86, the Mad Hatter, says, I better be able to crash my train though.
You just want to crash it and create chaos. Yeah, you want to be that Godzilla character, like smashing everything out.
Another great idea from Mike, which he didn't say, is the original SimCity, right? What was great about SimCity? You could simulate the city, and then you could fuck it all up with a giant dinosaur or a tornado or something. Like, that would be great in here. I mean, wouldn't it be great to see Godzilla towering over a mountain as you're riding in the train? You know, just like totally come up with these set pieces. There's some ideas in here.
I can see this becoming a meme for us. It's like critical feedback for the developers. Number 1, add dinosaurs. Right, so I'd love to know if there's any comments or feedback or questions from the chat before we wrap this week's show up. Just to sort of go over what we've covered in this week's episode. We've talked about Planet of the Apes coming to VR. That's going to be coming soon. HTC's collaboration with Ready Player One. The HTC Vive Pro price rumour at $799. Oculus overtaking Vive in the Steam hardware survey. Yep. Pirate quests in Rec Room, which is called the Isle of the Lost Skulls. Moss, the cute little quill mouse, which is a girl now I've discovered, that looks amazing, and I really want to check that out. And of course, the topic that we've just discussed, Rolling Lines, which is a tabletop train set simulator. So yeah, any questions for the chat before we wrap this one up?
We have one more piece of news to share.
Okay.
Which is Firmament. I'm going to run the video for this one.
Oh yeah, of course. From the Myst developers, right?
From the Myst developers, we have another title coming. And actually, the trailer, although quite a bit mysterious, it does, after the first half, show you some actual gameplay content. And it actually looks really good. So for those who haven't already tried it, there's a great game called Abduction. Rowdy would probably be bald, I'd imagine, if he played Abduction, because saying he doesn't like puzzles, I'm also kind of in that camp. Puzzles tend to piss me off, but I also persevere and just bash my head against the wall until I get through that beckoned wall of ice. And having played through, I think, about half of Abduction, it's like what Myst set the expectation for. Looks great, really weird, kind of its own story. And this is something totally new from these guys. So they did Myst, they did the VR Abduction, that's O-B. Abduction, not abduction. And I'm very excited about this one. So have either of you guys had a chance to check out Abduction?
I haven't checked it out. I saw the trailer for, what is it called again? This new one?
This new one is Firmament.
Firmament.
Yeah, it's one of those names. I can't
nice.
pronounce it. Yeah, it does look kind of cool. It looks interesting. Do we have any details of like when it's going to be released or what sort of platforms it's going to be on? I reckon it's going to be on Steam, right?
I can only assume it was the previous title was on Steam. I can't imagine this game running on PSVR, so I think this is going to be PCVR limited, I would imagine. Rowdy, you're the one who told me about it, so would you have any details on it?
The thing that I read an article on RowdyGuy saying Firmament appears on the list of available demos at GDC 2018, so we'll probably know a little bit more in a few weeks.
Yeah,
so there's not a lot of info going on, but of course, you know, Myst was a huge title as well,
of course,
and got like I mean, they basically invented a genre almost by themselves.
It's kind of one of those games that, like, from seeing the trailer, it kind of reminded me of like Heart of the Emberstone, that kind of sort of the gallery, those kind of games, you know, like a bit of a really mysterious story going on there, and tons of like puzzles and stuff you need to kind of figure out. It looks really interesting and unique in that way.
But there's no hand-holding in these titles, you know what I mean? Like
no,
these are
it's hardcore.
These are puzzlers for puzzle people. Like that's you have to know what you're getting into. Whereas I feel like the gallery and that they kind of ease you into the right way, or they give you a tip or whatever. And this is just this one.
I never managed to finish Myst in any way. It just looks absolutely gorgeous, you know.
Yeah, it was one of those titles that was like the most graphically impressive titles of its time, wasn't it? It was incredible.
I remember when Riven dropped, and I was like, how do you do those graphics? You know, it's like Riven was the sequel to Myst, and it was. I remember this.
I do enjoy like
thing that was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
I do enjoy like a puzzle game, but not with like mechanical kind of puzzles. More like, you know, detective kind of stuff I need to solve or something like that. I do enjoy that still.
Rowdy,
But
did you play Static?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that one though.
Yeah.
No, I haven't finished it.
You have. It's like Thumper.
I know. People have
been.
been saying that I should finish it for like a year now, and I still haven't been able to do it. I know. You already told me that.
Yeah,
we got a few. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, funny looking back, you know, like when the Myst was originally out, and you think, how could graphics possibly get any better than this? You know, I always remember saying that, like, how can they make this any better? Like,
yeah. I thought that play in GoldenEye, and about 10 years ago, I went back and I pulled out my old N64 and I got my brother around and we were sitting down to play. I'm like, God, this looks awful.
I know. It's painful going back. It really is painful going back. It's like the DK1, you know, I remember playing that, like you say, mentioned earlier on, and, you know, you're so blown away from it, and then you sort of experience that now, and you'd be like, what the fuck is this? You know, you're like, I'm not interested anymore. But yeah, it looks really cool, and that's going to be out soon, so hopefully we'll be able to check that out and let you know our thoughts on that game when it finally comes out. So just to remind you guys... Oh, sorry, go on.
We got a few more comments in the chat
sure.
related to the topic. The Mad Hatter says that we are going to be responsible for so many cheap Rush to the Sword dinosaur games now, which is probably true.
Yeah.
And then James Davis, he played the pirate game in Rec Room yesterday, and he almost broke his darn hand, which I can understand.
I can understand that, yeah.
And then the Mad Hatter also asks if Myst and Abduction are both VR games, which they are not. Only Abduction is a VR game, if I'm correct.
Right.
And the Firmament is ground up built for VR, whereas Abduction wasn't. Because Abduction has VR support added, which is true.
We don't know yet, actually, but I imagine it's from Round VR experience.
Yeah, I assume so, yeah.
Okay, so we've been going on for about an hour and a half now, so let's wrap this week's show up. Just to remind you guys, it is a weekly AR, VR, and MR talk show, live streamed every Saturday, of course, on Nathie's YouTube channel. Tune into the show live at 4 p.m. in Europe, 3 p.m. in the UK, 9 a.m. in Central US. If you missed the podcast, catch up with the whole show, which I upload to my own YouTube channel, Virtual Reality Oasis, tomorrow, which is on a Sunday. I upload it with a better quality audio, just so you're aware. So if you really are an audiophile and you want to listen to the best possible version, check it out on my channel. Or check out the audio-only version, which is available on Google Play Music, iTunes, and on SoundCloud. Nathie, I'm sure we'll be back next week's episode, so apologies if you've missed our blonde-haired little Dutch friend, but he will be back, and you don't need to worry about him. He is fine, by the way. Thanks again for being part of this week's show. We really appreciate all your comments, feedback, and questions during the show. We really love interacting with you guys, and we'll see you on next week's episode. So for now, bye-bye.
See you later.